Well, we just did a whole hour-long show with a whole bunch of sleepers, and guess what? We have more names for you right now on FFT Express. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's Adam and Dave here on Monday, March 31st. And Dave, you gave us, your list was Herbert and Prescott at quarterback, Eckler, Trey Benson, Will Shipley at running back, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Keon Coleman, that's alliteration, at wide receiver, Tucker Kraft, Isaiah Likely, and Jake Ferguson at tight end. But you've got even more names than that, so dazzle me with a quarterback.
Let's start with JJ McCarthy of the Minnesota Vikings. This is assuming that he's healthy and ready to go. And I think the Vikings, if they're not signing Aaron Rodgers and they're not re-signing Sam Darnold, or Daniel Jones for that matter, I think they're banking on JJ McCarthy being ready to go for the week 1 of 2025 season. And there's zero stats on JJ McCarthy that suggest that he's going to be great. I don't care about what he did in the preseason last year. Here's what I care about. Quarterbacks in the past 3 seasons with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, 27 of 51 games with at least 22 fantasy points, at least 8 such games per year. So we're not talking about that 20 fantasy point threshold, and that's 6 point per passing touchdowns. This is 22 plus. And O'Connell has done a good job. I think having good receivers has been a huge part of that. I think O'Connell can coax that out of McCarthy, who's kind of a rushing threat on top of being a capable thrower. So I would be encouraged to take McCarthy, not as my QB1 by any stretch, but someone to just sit on the bench to begin the year.
All right, give me a running back sleeper.
This is kind of in that same vein of a lot of the running backs that we talked about on the main show. Heath brought up Jordan Mason. I brought up Trey Benson and Will Shipley, but this one is the one that's at the doorstep of the mother lode, and that's Isaac Guerendo in San Francisco. We know that Christian McCaffrey coming back from injury, older running back. Yes, he's got great upside. Yeah, he's probably going to be a first-round pick, but you've got to be a little bit concerned about McCaffrey getting back to north of 24 PPR points per game. You've got to be worried about him playing in more than 10 games this coming season, and that's where Guerendo comes into play, and we saw it last year when Isaac Guerendo was in there for the 49ers, 17.9 PPR points per game in the 4 games. He played at least 50% of the snaps in, 3 touchdowns. And this part's even better, Adam, 3.5 targets per game in those 4 games. So it's a small sample size, but we've seen him do it. If he got an opportunity to do even more, that would be amazing. This is a running back that you can draft midpoint of your fantasy league at the absolute earliest. And just like I said with Benson and Shipley, Guerendo's going to be on my shopping list no matter what, whether I get McCaffrey early or not. This is a lottery ticket I want to have on my team. Massive sleeper appeal.
You know what's really interesting, because Jordan Mason was mentioned by Keith, I believe, right? Or is that you?
Sure, but I co-sign that. I like it.
Right. So he's obviously a sleeper because Aaron Jones, this and that, and could get hurt, and he's old and whatnot. And Mason was very good for the 49ers. But looking at Mason last year, he had an 8.2 target per route run rate. Guerendo had a 15.5 target per route run rate. For whatever reason, the 49ers did not really throw to Mason. 2, maybe 3 targets, if you're lucky, per game. They did throw to Guerendo, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean for Mason on Minnesota? I don't know. Is there a reason for that? Because obviously the 49ers, when Christian McCaffrey's there, they throw to him all the time. They were willing to throw to Guerendo. They were not willing to throw to Jordan Mason. I'm not sure if that was a fluke, but it was a lot of games. I mean, it wasn't just a few games for Jordan Mason. It was almost half a season. And he was not someone who was targeted. So when I look at handcuffs, I want a guy who's going to have some, more catches. And Minnesota does throw to running backs. They have anyway at times. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's possible that Mason can catch the ball and see a higher target per route run rate than what we're talking about here. That's below 10%. That's pathetic. But could he get to where Guerendo was last year? I don't know. I don't know if he can. But Guerendo got there last year. That's what matters for this sleeper call.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, get a wide receiver, and maybe a tight end if we have time on FFT Express. And I want to remind everybody to listen to the full-length episode because we gave you over 20 sleepers to think about. We'll be right back. All right, so give me a wide receiver sleeper that's not Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, or Keon Coleman.
I think it will be a while on draft day before you hear the name Darnell Mooney get called. And it was, I don't know if there were drafts last year where his name got called at all and you picked him up off the waiver wire after week 1, but 6.6 targets per game in his first year with Atlanta, with the majority of those targets coming from Kirk Cousins, whose arm got banged up, whose mobility was non-existent. And Mooney averaged 12.1 PPR points per game. We talked a lot on the main show about bench wide receivers and guys that you can draft. Obviously, you would hope that they hit it big somehow in their top 24 receivers, but really they're guys that in a pinch you can put them in your starting lineup, bye week replacement, just good depth overall. I think Mooney qualifies there, and maybe not to the same level as some of the names that we talked about, but I do think that Darnell Mooney is worthy of a draft pick and is a sleeper, and because of his speed and because his quarterback this year in Michael Penix can throw the deep ball maybe a little bit further downfield than current day Kirk Cousins could, I think that does open the door for Mooney to do better than 12.1 PPR points per game, but maybe not like 13.5.
2 games with Penix. Just, this really doesn't even matter, but just to tell you, 5 catches, 82 yards on 6 targets, 2 catches, 37 yards on 5 targets. I don't know if he left that game early with an injury. He may have, because he did miss the last game of the season, week 18. All right, we got time for a tight end. Give me a tight end sleeper.
This isn't one that I'm like crazy about. He's not going to fit into my top 15 and is barely on my late round list, but let's see what happens on draft day. It's Chigoziem Okonkwo of the Tennessee Titans, who 3 of his last 4 games last season for Tennessee, at least 10.9 PPR points in each one of them. He kind of got some run late in the year to play and be a factor in the passing game. And lo and behold, the coaching staff realized, hey, this guy's not bad. Maybe we should use him a little bit more. Hopefully they remember that and they push it forward this year. Cam Ward did use his tight ends at Miami quite a bit. That was a good thing. And Okonkwo at this point figures to be the primary tight end for Tennessee. So maybe he's worth that final round draft pick, dare I say, that you just grab him, stash him, see what happens. And if Tennessee does nothing at wide receiver, we talked about how few wide receivers they have on their roster that we'd want to have in fantasy right now. Maybe this dude ends up being kind of a sleeper who ends up getting second on the team in targets from Cam Ward. And this is, of course, assuming that Cam Ward is the Titans quarterback. We're all assuming that right now. Let's wait and see what happens. But for now, in pencil, Chigoziem Okonkwo, deep sleeper.
Okay. Thank you very much to Dave Richard. I am Adam Azer. Coming up this week on Fantasy Football Today, and then, of course, Fantasy Football Today Express. Will you guess? We did sleepers today. We have 2 more episodes. What do you think they're going to be? Obviously, they're going to be breakouts, and they're going to be busts.
Kickers.
And kickers. If we do a bonus podcast on kickers.
No, we're not doing jack squat on kickers, dude.
And you can listen to FFT Dynasty as well. And you can watch all of our videos at youtube.com/fantasy football today.
Sorry, Willie Lutz. You might be great in our tournament pool bracket, but we're not talking about your position.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you on Wednesday on Fantasy Football Today Express.